10 yards of concrete underneath. There's one problem that's busted. It doesn't look very good.
Yeah.
Stick it down.
Marianne,
10 yards.
can you try that again?
Okay,
You're
it
right.
looks like they had this issue the other night at council, so it might be that just everyone that's online that wants to participate will have to kind of give me a hands up. Um, can you read some chat?
I assume they can hear us, but we can't hear them. Is that the same problem?
Yeah, I'm not sure if the mics are working very well.
Well, last week it was a problem with the Teams setup, so they could hear each other.
Yeah,
Ariane, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
are you on mute?
Can you hear Cora when she
I
speaks?
can hear. I can hear.
All right, but there's just no connection in between the two of us. Or yeah, gotcha. It was the same issue as with the city council. Mm-hmm. But you can nod and gives us thumbs up and aggressive no signs. Yeah, exactly. And we're gonna play charades today. So what it sounds like.
They can text us.
We have IT on the phone and working on it.
Oh, can you hear me? I think I can hear all kinds of stuff going. Yeah. It seems louder than normal. Yeah, I really want to get that prop up there. That's a great idea.
Yeah. It'd be a sure shot.
It would be.
I mean, that thing is huge. People don't realize when it's laying it down.
Yeah.
And then it came off the new Carissa. That's history. That's real history.
That came off the new Carissa? Oh shit.
I know.
We gotta get that thing up. I'm gonna talk to him. I'll talk to what's her name? Marsha.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can help. Maybe we can do a collaborative
Or we just
thing.
get under some night in 66 and pull her up and pour some mud.
Guerrilla art.
So how about on the soundboard, is there something, I mean, nobody should be touching this, but
So, Ariane texted me, since Sam isn't here, he's the vice chair. She asked if I would just run the meeting, does that work? Since nobody can hear? Okay.
Go for it.
All right, well, let's hold up. They're working with IT real quick. If they call in the team's number?
yeah, so you just turn your mic off on the computer, your phone will be your audio, and still have the video.
Oh, okay. So did you guys hear that? If you turn your mic off on your computer and call in, that will be your audio, but we will still be able to see you.
There should be a call-in number on that same message you got to do the link.
Yeah, call-in number should be on the same message to do the link for Teams. Is that something y'all want to give a shot?
Alternative, or maybe, or chat, yes and no if they're voting.
Yeah, and I mean, the way we did it last week, I just kind of ran things in the chat and, like I said, played charades a little bit. But if you're willing to call in, I would at least give us some audio. Also, Ariane says she has another meeting she has to jump off to at 12:30, so I might just go ahead and start the meeting, and we'll just get the wheels moving here. Let's go ahead and call to order. Do a roll call. I don't have the roll call. Kelly, do you have a roll call?
I'm
All right.
here.
Yeah, well, Carmen Matthews here, Tree Board and Parks Commission.
Yeah.
Rex Miller, Tree Board.
Meredith Childs, Tree Board.
Beverly Myers, Parks, Joshi Garden.
Coco Sutton is calling in.
Bill Davis, Parks.
John Eck, staff.
Greg Hamblets, City of Coos Bay.
Kelly Burnett, City of Coos Bay.
And let the record show we have Coco Sutton, Ariane Lyons, and Cora Vandervelden as well calling. I also see Patrick Bringardner's in there. And Haley. I can't read your last name, I'm sorry. There's too many pieces of glass in between me and the screen. And is there anybody else that I have missed that looks like there's a number, but I don't see a name on it? If we get that in the chat, we'll make sure to record you as here. Meeting minutes for the last meeting. Do we have approval, a movement to approve?
Carmen, do you have an agenda?
I do. Oh wait, oh gosh, you know what? I'm looking at the wrong agenda.
You know what, and actually, it does have approval of the minutes on here. What happened to this? Items 2 and 3 do not apply.
Gotcha. All right, citizen input. We'll move on.
I am still employed.
Yeah, we'll move on. Citizen input. Doesn't look like we have any citizen input unless that number virtually is a citizen. 541-751 something.
I think that's Meredith Childs.
That's me.
Oh, that's him.
Have I called anybody?
So,
Not me.
no public comment related to the agenda, not related to the agenda items. I don't think we've received any public comment forms.
We have not.
All right, let's move on to the living memorials in city parks.
Yeah, so on February 17th, 2022, the Parks Commission came together, and one of the topics was the discussion of living memorials. The City of Coos Bay staff received a couple of inquiries to place living memorials in Mingus Park. In the Parks Master Plan, under Chapter 7.3, it does state that the Public Works Development will provide a list of appropriate or approved trees to be placed in the park system as living memorials. Staff was unable to locate that list of approved trees to be utilized as living memorials in the park system. So staff came to the commission, Parks Commission, brought that issue up, and then that's what led us to having a joint meeting between the tree board and the commission. So right now, staff is looking for a list of trees that we can be recommended by both the Parks Commission and the tree board, or with consult with the tree board, to develop that list so that we can move forward as stated in the Parks Master Plan with that list of appropriate trees. So that's kind of where we're at today, and what we're hoping to get is collaboration to come up with that, so that we can advise citizens who want to donate trees as a living memorial for loved ones.
All right, so there's the memorial and benches policy PDF, and it doesn't reference any trees, but it does say that for living memorials must be submitted in writing to the Public Works Department. Donors may select trees from a list of suitable plants provided by the Public Works Department. Living memorials are not perpetual. Public Works Department will endeavor to maintain and protect the plants to the best of horticultural practices. So at this point, I guess we just need to have a discussion on maybe focusing on individual parks or types of parks, or some kind of location criteria for specific tree species. That's, I think, where we're kind of having a hard time. So there's different types of parks. You know, you got natural parks, and then you have more urban parks. And I would imagine that the tree species that we would want to have on a list to be selected would be different in those two environments. Does the tree board have any input on that, or maybe you guys already have a list of approved plantings that would work? I should know, I'm on the tree board, but I don't know because I'm new.
So I do know that the tree board has put together a list of trees that are suitable for streets with sidewalks, a list of trees for trees that are appropriate that fall within a framework, trees that can be used on residential streets. And then there is a category of trees not to be used as street trees. And so, maybe that's that list, I don't know.
I think street trees are different than what we're talking about here.
Memorial trees. I mean, the list of approved trees is one thing. I just almost kind of wonder if it should be taken to the tree board to be approved by, I mean, this is one option. If somebody comes to the city, the Public Works Department, and requests to put in a memorial tree, I wonder if it should just be approved by the tree board in general for location and species. Is that something that is outside of what we're trying to achieve here? I mean, I just worry that, somebody's going to want, I want a monkey puzzle tree. And you're like, sorry, no, we're not going to do that right here.
Yeah, and I don't know if that, Carmen, I don't know if that falls within the purview of the tree board. I think that that's, it was referenced in the Parks Master Plan that list would be as part of the park process. Like I said, there is a list of approved street trees, but there is a category of trees not to be used as street trees. I don't know what that means. Is that for all other open spaces and parks? I don't know.
Yeah,
I
so
don't know what the intent of that
yeah.
is.
Is there,
This is Coco.
maybe
I
there's
would
a list of trees that are desired to have in parks that the tree board would like to see as part of the park's assets, or in the city's assets in terms of trees that maybe are outside of the planting scope on rights of way and streets and such, but would be desired by the tree board? Is that?
I think whatever you decide, it should kind of be site-specific.
Yeah, that's why I'm almost wondering. It seems
I
like,
think the best solution is to take that direct requirement of having a tree selected from the list, take the list out of it, and just submit proposals for a specific species in a specific spot for approval.
through the tree board.
Well, it's a parks thing.
It is.
The tree board could, or the parks could ask for recommendations from the tree board, but it's a parks decision.
Yeah, I think for many of us on the parks, the design of parks and such is one thing, but maintenance of trees and types of species is maybe out of some of our scope of knowledge. And so the tree board would give valuable information to us in terms of if the tree would be suitable in that specific location in terms of exposure, wind exposure, all these kinds of things.
I think from a tree board point of view that we deal with street trees, and we deal with heights and crown sizes and rooting factors because it's in sidewalks, and you're dealing with those kind of requests more ornamental trees.
Yeah.
And you would be staying away from the big trees, and you would be staying away from the trees that would cause problems. I don't know whether you want to stay away from fruiting trees. We'd stay away from fruiting trees on sidewalks.
I think so.
Apple trees would be great, but you probably not want them in a park just because they might cause problems. I don't know, but But those are the kind of things I think of when we're making decisions different from how you're making decisions.
Yeah, I would say there is a difference in there, for sure. But I almost see this as a blend between the two commissions where, you know, we're focusing more on design and you guys would have the knowledge of appropriate species selection. You know, I mean, we could narrow it down. We could have a small list of things that would be appropriate on a general basis, but you know, approval for any species outside of that list maybe would have to go through tree board and parks. I mean, that seems, I don't know, what are you thinking, Greg? Yeah, I'm
I'm thinking we're and I don't know, maybe I might be overstepping, but from a staff point of view, as stated in the master plan, is that that list of trees would be made available to somebody that wants to donate a tree. And so I think from a staff point of view, you know, and not to get into a position where we're having to present to both the tree board and the Parks Commission an application, and we need both groups to agree on that. So what I would look for, and I think what staff is looking for, is a list of trees that we can provide to a donor that meets the criterias. If we want to do it specifically to a specific park, you know, be it an urban or more natural space, whatever that situation may be, I just think that if we just leave it to somebody to say, we want to do this tree, what are your thoughts? That could lead to some level of discretion that maybe we don't have the expertise to make, or we have to, you know, the tree board meets quarterly, Parks Commission meets monthly, you know, is it something that we can make that decision based off of that list of trees, and we can provide that list, and we can make that decision on a case-by-case basis based off of the list that we have for the park. I think if we were to leave it to having to come to the commissions or the tree board each time, then it's gonna be a cumbersome, disjointed venture that I just,
Yep.
you know, just see it be a painful process for somebody that's wanting to donate something.
Yeah, I can see that, and it would take quite a while. The only thing I'm seeing is kind of a hindrance. And Coco, I see your hand up. I will try to get you in here just a second.
I also have some written comments in the chat.
Oh, great. Okay. I just signed in so I could see those comments, but I haven't figured those out yet. So, you know, the way I'm seeing it as being a problem is like maybe a evergreen tree somewhere mixed in with a, you know, kind of a more natural maple setting would be, I'm not sure if it would blend well, but I guess that would be to the discretion of the Parks Commission at that point.
Yeah, and so what we can do is we can establish planting zones and say this zone can be, you know, we can plant this tree in this area or whatever, you know, at each park. Or any of these trees can be planted just for this park. So I'm not sure. I just want to make it as easy as we can for the citizens and yet achieve the goals of both the Parks Commission, the tree board, and the city.
Okay. I see from, must be Haley, we have historically approved care and removal of trees in parks. A recent example is a large pine removed from near the bathrooms at Mingus Park.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember that.
That was a disease issue.
Yeah. And so we do, as the tree board, deal with parks in terms of trees that pose a danger to the public, basically. And then Coco, if you have comments, it'd be great if you could maybe type them into the chat.
Okay, well, I'm on the phone.
Oh, there you are. Okay, great. Go ahead.
Okay, I know there's an echo, so I had sent some examples to Kelly from other parks concerning memorial trees or other donations. I think it's helpful to have anything that involves infrastructure or buildings in terms of plantings be reviewed by city staff and tree committee, because longevity of how those impact infrastructure is important. and having a brochure that's available online or by mail to the public, similar to examples I sent to Kelly, would leave it easier for individuals to apply to put them specific to park, trail, or riparian area, and approved unless it impacts infrastructure, sidewalks, streets, or a hazard issue, go to the park committee, to the park plan. Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, Rex here, Tree Board. A couple of thoughts here. I probably would be more concerned about the size of the trees that go in and also the care afterwards. But the street trees are typically always deciduous, and that's what we deal with. But evergreens are fine. I mean, if somebody wanted to plant a Colorado blue spruce for their grandmother, that would be fine. But you're not going to find a very large Colorado blue spruce. So I think it would make a difference. Whatever goes in has to be durable. For instance, on the street trees are all 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches. So you'd need to have a pretty substantial tree, and then it would need to be protected, so vandals and animals don't destroy it till it gets a good start. So that would be my concern.
Correct. I think having a size requirement is kind of crucial for actual survival of the memorial.
Size, a planting size.
Yes.
Yes.
And I think it would be great if we had a list of trees, but they had, maybe even a list of places where you could get larger trees. I know there's a place called like Big Trees Today up in Portland. You can get a 16-foot tree if you want, pretty much ready to go. Places like that. I mean, I know that makes it pretty expensive, but having some kind of requirement for the sustainability of it would be great. Somebody else said, the ordinance states the tree board shall have the primary responsibility to study, investigate, develop, and update periodically a written plan for the care, planting, replanting, removal, and disposition of all street and park trees. So that's pretty all-encompassing. This list would need to include trees that have a longevity of life of the tree and continuity to the park, and I completely agree with that. I'm not sure if something like a California redwood would be. Are we going to be approving potentially 300-foot tall trees, or we gotta give it some scope. Not that I'm against redwood trees. I think they're amazing, and it would be great to have some. But if it's next to a planting next to a house or something like that, it'd be kind of scary.
That would be, you would have different trees in like a Mingus. I would think you would not want something big in Mingus.
Yeah.
Unless it were, up in the forest part, and then, but a different tree if you're talking John Toppins.
Yeah, exactly. So how do we lay this out so that there's a pretty clear pathway to a tree selection for somebody? It's almost like a Venn diagram, like, well, if it's in this park it works, but if it's close to a house, then only these trees work, and if it has a height restriction, then only these trees work. So that it kind of narrows it down, just to make it easy on staff, to where it's just a pretty simple equation. I don't actually know how to organize that, but I'm open to maybe crafting a list of multiple species, and then short list for species in urban parks, and another short list for trees next to structures, but then having an overall requirement of size or tree, diameter. Does that make sense?
I have a question. I'm on the tree board, so I don't know exactly what parks that we're talking about. Is it just basically Mingus and what?
We're
How
all
much?
parks, so this would be, kind of focus on all parks. It could be, the small parks like Pirate Park over here
Okay,
on 10th, or it could be John Toppit's, which is a much different style of park than Mingus. But I would imagine that there's a pretty easy choice for a general tree, kind of more native kinds of trees.
I would, when you talk native, you can talk Doug fir,
Mhm.
and I wouldn't be planting a Doug fir in a lot of parks.
Yeah. Yep.
We've got hardwood tree options too, I mean, that are native that you can
Yeah.
select from. I mean, there's a whole multitude, and
Yeah.
I like Carmen's idea. I mean, you could come up with a list of kind of options for people to pick from, and then you could filter it down by site, whether it's a shady site, it's a sunny site, is it an ornamental tree, or is it, just a native full-grown tree, and do it that way. I mean,
Boy, it's gonna be hard to come up with a list.
So we have a couple of more comments in the chat. Coco said, I like starting with a tree survey and then the park planning, then the list for what trees and shrubs can be donated to an area, and this can be updated as park master plan gets revised. And then it looks like Cora said, I would like to think that we can review the other list and then go to park by park and add or delete from the list so that we have an all-inclusive list. Yeah, so I would guess, Coco, you're kind of saying survey the trees in each individual park, or maybe the parks that we're focusing on as memorial planting acceptable for memorial planting parks, and then, seeing what is already existing and then getting a list from that. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Well, what I have seen in the past is every park property normally has some kind of vegetation issues in them, but some of them may also have areas that are restricted due to cultural sites, et cetera. So usually within each park property, whether it's a trail, a large park or a small pocket park, you have a survey of what's in there. A lot of times that's also for hazard tree reviews. And then you decide which parks are you going to allow people to donate, because it could be what's considered shrubbery. It could be green space for ball fields. It could be, there's people that donate sod and, resurfacing and things like that. So I did send you, Carmen, a list of some brochures from other municipalities that put that together. But I think starting with what you have in each park or property, then deciding with your master plan and other issues that may not be allowing certain things to be done, in other words, cultural sites, et cetera, these are the parks or riparian areas or trails that we will allow memorial donations of trees or shrubs to be planted in. And then within the scope of that, what are you going to allow? And the gentleman that mentioned that a lot of the native plantings that we have in the Pacific Northwest are not appropriate to city parks. That's why you will see certain miniature or engineered shrubbery that goes into parks that are not native to our area because of the scope of the type of plantings that are indigenous to our area.
That makes
Does
sense.
that make sense?
Yeah.
So you'll see people wanting maples or birches or things that are not even, might be limited in their scope of being in the Pacific Northwest, but because of their aesthetics or the plan of the park, such as walking trails, et cetera, that's what people like to see. And then as you develop your park plans, for example, in John Toppit's, if you start putting in all the different situations that people have suggested, i.e. library, disc golf course, et cetera, you may want to change what can or can't be planted at a specific time and then updated as trees or succession planting happens. So it is a comprehensive thing that happens, but it has to start from what do you have now? Because I can tell you from being at Lane Community College where we had to dig up a redwood, rent a crane and move it because it was memorial planting, you also want to put a scope of how long are you going to be responsible for succession plantings on memorials. And some of those brochures, cities say we'll be responsible for up to 5 or 8 years for maintaining this, and then after that, we're not going to be responsible for succession planting if something happens to that tree. So those are some of the considerations when I think when you have the public taking the time and wanting a memorial for their loved one, that it's going to be sitting in with what you're doing and you're not paying to move it later, or it interferes with infrastructure that you know is going to be coming down the road. So that's kind of where I was going. But the brochures that I sent you a copy, Carmen. I think that's helpful to look and see what other places do, because that's what you run into is everybody wants to put in trees that may not necessarily fit with your plan, or you walk in the park and aesthetically it looks strange because you have all these different types of planting, and then you have the maintenance issue. It'd be nice to look like Vermont, but you got to clean up all those leaves. Or if you have ornamental plums or cherries and you've got all that dropping on the street like the city of Eugene had on their mall years ago, you got to be out there cleaning that up or it smashes all over the sidewalk. So just those are some things that I think need to be considered. But in the short run, I think having a list for someone to go with, unless they make a suggestion, you can also look case by case. Thank you.
Okay. I don't know, how did you send me that information?
Well, I just sent an email to you at your City of Coos Bay.
Okay.
I had sent that to Kelly and Greg because I thought it might be helpful to see what other places have that they actually put on their websites and have available to the public, because it covers a lot of the issues that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You know, what's available, the scope, parks that you can. So some of them are very specific to this park, this park, this park, and this park are the only places, or these trails that you can have a public donation. And then people know, and then here's the list of what you can do in each one of those parks. Other people, it's just, here's the parks that you're available to put stuff into. Here's the tree list we have. Here's how much it costs. Here's the size. And here's what we'll do and for how long.
That makes sense. And this is already kind of exists, so we could kind of...
Yeah, there's 5 links I sent from different municipalities, and they're not all the same, but they all touch on the elements that we've been talking about concerning whether it's benches, plaques, bricks with names stamped on them, trees, that people want to donate and help in their park, but also memorialize something for a loved one, or something for a company, maybe that, like Menasha, when they had the big tree rings that they put in the cities for one of their centennial or something events. So those are just some examples, because sometimes corporations want to do something and ask to put a memorial type thing in a park or one of the open spaces in a city. And I think there were 5 links. If other people want to look at them, it just can give you an idea.
Yeah, I'll see if we can forward this to everybody, because, a lot of these things are all kind of...
I was just gonna say, I apologize, I meant to include that as an attachment, I just totally forgot about it, but we could definitely make sure that we email it to that list to everybody. But as far as, and I believe it says in the master plan, the efforts that city staff will be required to do to protect a newly planted tree. And so I think that's all been established. I think for us as staff, I think the biggest concern, and I understand that the commission or the board members, tree board members may have, other paths that they want to go down, but I think the critical path for staff is establishing what list of trees we can put in what parks. And I understand it. And I not exactly 100% positive, but if in the parks master plan, if it establishes a size, I can't remember if I saw that or not. I don't believe that I did. So I think it'd be good to establish a size of tree that would be required to be put in along with that species. And so staff is just waiting for that guidance.
So Ariane texted me before she had to leave the meeting as well, and she said, I like the selection of removing the list and changing the language to select trees, garden, or landscape materials congruent with the existing design of the park selected, or something like that. Then we can use then if they want a list, we just list the existing trees in that park. That is kind of a quick, easy way to get through this that's not necessarily making a mixed design element that would make it difficult. At least for, like, right now, we could probably make that something. I don't know, what do you think, Greg?
Well, I'm only thinking that I think that's appropriate language maybe for the next master plan. But right now, we do have a master plan that does say what the requirements are and what we will do. And so I agree with that. I think that'd be a great statement to make. I don't know if we can get beyond this master plan that we are under and operating out of, if we can make that language change, how that would go about being done and what that would look like. I'd definitely be open to it, but until that point that has been established, you know, this is the kind of where we're at now.
I would imagine that the Parks Commission could probably move or suggest this to the city council, and we could make an amendment to the master plan, I believe. I'm not positive on that, but
I'm not positive either. We can definitely look into that.
I think that might be the easiest way. Kelly?
I think the master plan says it's a list provided by staff, by the Public Works Department.
Yes.
And if that's the case, to me, if they apply for it and we say, okay, you can pick from what's congruent, then that's a list provided by staff.
There you go. So
Would that not be?
this is the list. Well, what's the list look like? The list is you can select trees, garden, or landscape materials congruent with the existing design of the park selected. That's your
Yeah, and
list.
if we have that list made.
And then if they want that list, I think that we could probably send somebody out to just go, okay, well, we have shore pine, we have some maples, we have flowering plums, or, you know, whatever it may be.
So how do you keep them from planting alders and willows and tan oaks?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Keep them off the list.
All right.
Is there a lot of tan oaks in our parks?
They're more in the woods, but there's lots of others. There's cascara and there's one of the worst is the hawthorns. They sprout up everywhere. So there's a lot of trees you wouldn't want there.
Yeah. So could we make a no list?
I
I'm
think you should
curious.
have a no
I'm
list.
curious. I'm curious if we were to take the trees that are not to be used as street trees and kind of take a look at those. So we have an approved list of trees that can be planted on all the streets. But we have a list of trees that appear, from my understanding of the list, is that they are approved. They're just not approved to be used as street trees. And so if that is a list that we want to utilize and give, and I would encourage the tree board to review that list, and I would also encourage the Parks Commission to review that list to make sure that these trees are appropriate. I don't know if they all are or not. I'm from Las Vegas. We all know what palm trees look like down there. But beyond that, my tree experience is minimal. But we do have a list of trees here that are trees not to be used as street trees, and no evergreens on public streets. If these trees are appropriate, then I'd be happy to suggest those in the meantime. But I just need to get that guidance.
So depending on which park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have this list, and maybe we can then, at that point, for which park, so we can say these trees out of this list can go to that park, these trees out of that list can go to this park. And I don't know if that's something that could be done in 10 minutes, or does it require a tree survey to do? I have no idea.
Yeah, I would imagine that the trees that you guys have selected as no for street trees would be because of the damage that a lot of the roots can do to sidewalks and or height issues
Right,
and or, you know,
what they drop.
what they drop,
Yeah.
exactly. I wasn't sure, I was trying to find a way to put that into words, yeah, what they drop. So, a lot of that makes sense as a no list, especially if people are gonna put a tree next to a pathway in a park. You don't want it destroying the AC path.
And we're planting in 24 to 40, 48 inch holes in concrete. And that's completely different
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
environment than planting in an open fielded park
Yeah, yeah,
with power lines over top. We have.
you know, we don't want necessarily aspens going in and just creating like a giant aspen forest, right?
Right.
Yeah, I'm learning that from Rex. I learned that.
But, you know, I think the flip side of that is if somebody wanted to put a coral bark maple in a park, you know, that's a very nice tree. It's not gonna be 1.5 caliper, but I think there's a few exceptions that one could make, and that's why I'm having a tough time coming up with just a list. We're saying you have to choose from this list, because there's really a lot of nice ornamentals that would look
The list could be a suggestion, and if they had another suggestion, then we'd have to approve it.
Yeah, then at that point, we could say we have to take this to the tree board or the Parks Commission, whichever way the body wants to move that. I'm not sure, but I think that would be an appropriate way of doing that as well, so.
Well, there's two questions there, location and species.
yeah.
Yeah,
Because location is very utilities, space, what's going on in that part of the park, et cetera. And species is height, diameter, shade, all those things that weigh into that decision. So there's a lot of things that are involved in making the decision about putting what where.
So, real quickly, before I get too lost, we have a couple of comments. Coco said, can we make a motion to use the current master plan and add a current tree/shrub list for the public who want to put in a particular park right now? And I think that is a good potential for a movement. And then it looks like Cora said, one way to assist is that if someone chooses a tree or a shrub that doesn't fit in a particular park, then we could refer them to a park that tree would fit into. And I think that's a good suggestion as well. Although often people want their tree in